Just check my audio signals are here. Yeah, we good. एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निरभव निर्वैर अकाल मूर्त अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच। वाहिगुरु 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 वाहिगुरु। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। नानक सहज मिलै जग जीवन नदर करो निस्तारा। एक अरदास पाठ कीरत की गुरु रामदास राखो शरणाई। गुरु रामदास राखो शरणाई। गुरु रामदास राखो शरणाई। All right. Good evening. Welcome back to Undercover. This is January 15, 2025, 9:02 p.m. And as the title of the stream suggests, and as you can see, I'm struggling with trying to keep this colorful After Effects expressions thing active. We're talking about really long JavaScript expressions in After Effects, the Mogrt process. So today the entire day primarily was spent doing this. And let me just open my Notion page for the day. Frame render type 2 minutes 22 seconds is something I'll have to be careful about. So I had to do remaining music cue sheets. I've done those. Then text animator Mogrt continued. I had to fix quite a few things from where we were yesterday, but even right now we're still like a long way from having a finished product, which I will then test in a lot of different scenarios, and then we can roll it out as a product for people to use, which will then give me more feedback on how I can improve it. So fixing column distributions, I'll show all of the progress I've done. Pseudo position movers with composition parameters. This was the biggest progress that I did today because a lot of thinking, a lot of logic was involved in that as well. But it's still not working for the other way around. So that is something I still have to work. Adding character tracking. It's like it by default. Premiere Mogurts, they just don't give you so much of the basic functionality that is absolutely needed. So a lot of hacks and a lot of workarounds have to be done in order to make the Mogurt as useful as I'm dreaming it to be. And then ITK script continued. I want to continue working on this, but the entire day went in this. So let me just show you where we are as of now. This is our Mogurt. Okay, let me just make this a little bigger and for you to see a little clearly. When you get the Mogurt, you get these 5 things. So at the top is subheadings. If you see this subheadings part, if you were to bring this down, you will have less and less of subheadings, and then basically just the heading with 0. And now you can go up to 5. I'm gonna add like around 12. So also because I'm gonna show you something or like tell you something about the blend mode situation, that's gonna be 12 times how many ever blend modes we need. So those many layers are going to be in this After Effects project, and I'm really concerned about if this starts to get really laggy when taken into Premiere as a Mogurt. So that's a different set of problems that I'm not thinking about right now. But as of now, this is what we have: subheadings. Then we have source text. Over here you'll have the source text for all of them. Okay, I haven't added all of these because I have set up this function, which I will show you right now, in such a way that if I just delete all the layers, the subheading 2 to subheading 5, and then I Control D or duplicate the first subheading layer and then move it down, everything just works flawlessly. That's because I've spent so much time trying to get the code right, which I will show how I've figured like arranged everything in Visual Studio Code, because After Effects expression like writing area is an absolute nightmare to work with. So there is source text, which I'm gonna fill it later. This is probably the most important tab here, align. Okay, align has all these options. You can distribute text based as rows or columns. When you are at row, we have left, center, right, and none. When you shift here to columns, it will automatically have clamped it to just stay at columns, because then at that point it's a dead drop down menu. And Erindel, who makes tutorials on geometry nodes, I took his course and he once said you should never have dead sliders or dead controls in your tools. So but After Effects, it's not responsive. Like if I shift it to column here, you won't see, like left will not automatically become something here, but if I change to center or right, then it will go to none columns. So After Effects is not that responsive, I can't help it. If you're back at rows, so if you selected columns, you can come in here, it will still stay at none rows, but you can go to top, center, and bottom. But if this was at rows, oh my god, what did I do? Why does this go up? If this was at columns, sorry, if this was at rows, you couldn't set any of these because it will stay at none because it's been clamped that way. Anyway, go to columns, and one big change that I've done from yesterday is I've removed individual margin, and then I've worked on position x1 through x5 and y1 through y5, and I have to make this into pointer so that I don't have two, I have just one to deal with. But that's the biggest thing that I want to talk about. Not G1, say G2, and you press this button on the mouse. Okay, I'm getting used to that. So what is this contraption of a code here? This is just the position. Okay, this layer's position is applied here. So let me just show you, right, what our script is doing at the moment. You have your master position, which is of the position of the header. I can bring it here, I can move it around. So if you go into a line tab, I will have to keep this screen full because otherwise I won't be able to show. Like if there's some code I have to show, I will zoom into the screen, but as of now, let's say this is at rows. So you see that head is like here. Now there are two use cases for this. One is where you have a heading and you want subheadings, which is what I've done right now. But you can also come in here and set the head to be one of the other words, right? So it will all be just a bunch of words that we are moving around, because that's like how your kinetic typography is. But there are these two use cases you can use, and if you make the size of head bigger or smaller, your other text will respond to it, because that's how everything is linked. The position of all these layers are dependent on the head position. It's all like a domino stack. So if I come in here, I can set rows. I've showed this yesterday. Rows, I can align them either left, which is what it is currently. I can align them center, all of them. I can align them right. Okay, if I go to columns, just have a look here. With columns, I can align them top, so this will be aligned top to each other. You can't just move it. So actually it's easier to see, but because I'm also trying to show here, I'm a bit skeptical if everything will come or no. So you have top for columns, you have center for columns, and you have bottom for columns. Okay, so that is that. Let me just keep it there. Now the biggest thing that I worked on today was this part, which I showed in my Notion page, pseudo position movers with composition parameters. So one thing that I was facing as a problem is, fine, I want them to be, let's say, column aligned like this, and I want them to be centered, right? But I will show it on rows because columns is something which is kind of messed up at the moment. So I fixed it for rows, I have to do it for columns. Columns is facing one little problem. I'll show you what. So let's say we are at rows and we are rows left aligned. Okay, I have it this way. So I have the distribute equal on, which if you turn it off, then everything will be like having individual control over things. Let me keep it on at the moment. Distribute equal off means this is the distance between each word starting from the second word. Yeah, because the size of the first word is a little different. That's why it's looking like it's not same, but it's actually the same in terms of pixels. So the margin is equal margin is what is going down here. Now what these position sliders do is it gives me individual control over all of these layers from where they are in terms of alignment, right? So earlier what I had is I had just this slider and I could move these around. But now what happens is, I have a close look at here. You see this snapping part? When you go from 0 to 1, that is what I have to fix. But what is important is if I go to -10, your word 1 will be at the left edge of the composition. If I go to +10, it will be at the right edge of the composition. If I take the y to -10, it will be at the top, and y at +10, it will be here. Okay, now let me just reset this so that you understand what I'm really trying to say. Now this was left aligned, right? If I was to make the text center aligned, even now if I take my position slider and move to -10, it will go to the left edge of the composition, and again the same thing. So what is happening is I have coded this in such a way that when you move these sliders, and these are like linear, right? So -10 to +10. When I do this, it is respecting the position which we have gained after doing this, like after setting the alignment to be whatever we have, and it's taking that position, and from there it is adding an offset to this value. So what it does is it allows me to be like, okay, I want to do a very random kind of jitter distribution now of text. I can do that. So I can come in and I can put head here, and let's say I stay center aligned, but I move the position a bit. So I go from here. You see that snap is something I have to work on. I'll fix that. So I'll move X here, this here, and it's snapping for everything. Let's say like this, and it's all about like random typography. If you want to do, you can come in here, you can change all the text, whatever you want to do. Let's say I want to just randomly orient all of this kind of like this. Okay, and the best part about this is it doesn't just stop here, because you also know that this is actually a text animator. Now design is something I've been working on so hard, because I know animation, as a matter of fact, doesn't work good without good design. So the best part about this is, now that I've designed it this way, I can come into the animation, and right now it's animation off, right? Because at the beginning of the timeline I can just say animate on, and so now all of these texts in the design or wherever you placed it, they will get animated basis this offset. So this is probably the biggest functionality, but I've been working so much on the design, I've kind of overlooked this. And the brilliant part about this is, each of these animations that are happening, they are happening without, like, once this is in a Mogrt in Premiere, there's going to be no keyframes involved, and you can come in here and change all of these. So I can change this from ramp up, where you see at the beginning heading is ramping up basis words, so I can, let's say, typewriter basis characters. So now we say header typewriter basis characters, then this is ramp. Let me change the third one to subheading third to position animated tracking flicker. This I still haven't put the functionality for this, but let me just say ramp up basis words. So I will just like plop in like that, third one. Yeah, and it all just works flawless. There is also a fade out button, so if I was to go somewhere, have I removed it? Yeah, fade out is at the top here. So fade out is on, fade out from 10 seconds. Let's say I want to fade all of this out from 8 seconds. You can come in here, say 8, fade out duration of 1. From 8 seconds, everything will just fade out. So there is a ton of functionality packed into this Mogrt, which is kind of insane. And again, the things that I said I need to work on is when I'm moving this position X. So I've removed the individual margin. There is no such scene as individual margin. There is like individual position X and Y. So I can move this around wherever I want. And the good thing about this is it is composition linked, right? So if I come all the way here, it will only come to the left edge of the composition, and if I take this all the way here, it'll only come to the bottom left edge of the composition. And if I also want to add a functionality where you select the composition, so I'm working in a 4K composition right now, you can go to 1080p composition as well. And I just need to work on that snap. It's got something to do, very simple thing to do with my god, the code where I'm saying less than 0 or greater than or something like that. Now because I've said really long JavaScript expressions in After Effects, I'm going to show a little bit of the expressions for this Mogrt, which if you just see, this is just the position property, right? And I've used 1, 2, 3 functions in here, and then there is one object called unique props, which has all of the variables which we use, and then we are using this position. This is just to calculate the position. If I were to show one of these layers, all of the expressions, this is the amount of expressions we have on one layer. And I was thinking about frame renders 38 milliseconds, but if we come in here and see how much time render time is for each of these, you see we're at 10 milliseconds for subheading 5. It's also because it depends on the kind of animation that's happening. 27 milliseconds. What is this? And we haven't added like any layer styles or anything right now, so optimizing this in terms of it shouldn't become a nightmare for somebody to use inside Premiere is also something I have to think about at a later point, not right now. So I'm going to jump into Visual Studio Code to give you a breakdown of just the position expression. So we have get cumulative width, cumulative height. This calculates this for all the subtext layers. I'm calculating the cumulative height because I want sublayer 3 to take into account the position values of sublayer 2, sublayer 1 and heading and so on. So we're using cumulative maths here. Cumulative height is a function which is returning cumulative height. Cumulative width is a function which is returning the cumulative width using source vector time.width. Then distribute text. This is our main function which is distributing the text. Now this unique props.distribute, unique props is a object at the bottom here, and we've done it this way so that if I just delete, let's say I make some changes to the code here in position of subheading 1, all I have to do is just delete all of the others and duplicate subheading 1, put it down, and it will just work flawlessly. That is because of this unique props. So what we've done is we've said, let's say M, right? M or margin is this com.layer control effect equal margin slider, that is fine. but for let's say position X, which is the the sliders that I showed, this is this layer dot name split one slider. So these make sure that when we duplicate the layer, because we are duplicating the layer, and the number at the top at the right will change to 1 2 3 4 5, these will automatically sync up, because that is how my effects control, like control over here, is set up. If I show this control, I cannot. This effect control here, if you see all of these values, they are all set up in this way, that it's margin 1, margin 2, margin 3, margin 4, position X, and then there's a dash 1, dash 2, dash 3. So we've set up everything in that way. That's this object here. We're coming here, we're adding in, let me show you the core of distribute text. So if distribute text is 1, which means vertical distribution, or in other words, row distribution. Rows is vertical distribution. It's kind of confusing. Horizontal distribution is column distribution, because I was thinking in terms of rows and columns like your spreadsheet, but this is ChatGPT's intervention. So if row align equals 1, left align, this is the logic, right? X is equal to, we're trying to calculate the position X and Y, so heading of position 0 minus heading width by 2. I don't know if I can show this in action, but let me try. So I come in here, right? Can I just reset everything? This will reset the first one. Also, I need a button just to reset everything. That doesn't quite seem to be a thing that I can do. Anyway, so I'll just show you the first one and you'll understand the others. So we'll at left align, right, vertical distribution left line, X, the position of this, right, the position is where this anchor point is, where my cursor right now is. So the position of this is heading position, this layer's position, this position layer is this layer's position, this. So calculate this where my pointer is. This is the position that we're getting from heading position 0, because position is a 2 value thing, X and Y, so position array bracket 0 minus heading width by 2. So heading width is this thing. So you from here you subtract this by 2, you're gonna come here where you see this part of H. So now position is here, and plus I'm gonna add this width by 2, so this width is this width. So imagine what will happen is this will come, this word 1 is gonna come here. If you can see my mouse cursor, I'm trying to draw a rectangle here. So with the first two, heading pause 0 minus heading width by 2, my word 1 will be, instead of sitting here, it will be sitting here, and so we add this width by 2. So this width by 2 is half of this, so that means instead of sitting here, half of this, it will sit here where it is sitting right now. So that's how we're getting X. Okay, for Y, we're looking at D equal. So the thing is, I'll have to simplify this code a little bit, because I'm not using like unequal margin, so it's always D equal. So then that will actually simplify a lot of things. So if D equals 1, I've done Y is equal to heading position 1, which is Y of this heading plus heading height. So instead of width, we're looking at height. So when we come over here, then from here we're looking at cumulative height, which in the first case it will be 0 only, that's coming from the function, plus m factor into m. Again, because I've removed the entire concept of individual margins, which is how I was building this Mogrt initially, there is no need for all of this. I'll have to probably simplify this code a little bit, but this is the core logic for all these if else statements, and that's how we're getting all of that alignment in place. So I guess that is it. That is your pretty long, what was the title, really long JavaScript expressions in After Effects. And if you're curious to know like what happens with this, I'm gonna continue working on this Mogrt for the next 3-4 days maybe, and then I'm gonna spend like 2-3 days trying to test it on like different projects for different use cases, for straight up motion graphics, explainers, for supers, all kind of things which my job would require me to do in adding text animations onto videos right inside of Premiere Pro. And then once I launch this is going to be the first product, first video of Vidhara. I'm really hoping to launch by 24th Jan, which is next Friday. Initially I was thinking this week itself, but where we are right now, by this week I'll probably get to a position where it's kind of ready to use by this Friday. And I also want to spend some time testing it, because a lot of things will come up while I'm testing. So next week is a good spot. And once that happens, I'll share this Mogrt with my team at the full-time job. I'll allow them, because they're still inside Premiere, they haven't moved to DaVinci Resolve, which is great, because then I have an opportunity to test this out with real editors who are doing real work. Anyway, so we'll get more and more feedback, and then we'll probably I'll probably make further versions of this and then share it as a video. And that's also one advantage of not like selling something right away, that it's free, right? If I make another version of the Mogrt, you can just download that. I will just make a video about it, you just download that Mogrt and we're good to go. So if you want to know more about this, it's gonna come on with Hara, and obviously the documentation of it is gonna be here on the code. Then other than that, one last thing is I got a comment on in the code itself by J in motion, AJEGE in motion. So thank you for your comment. It was on the script icons, right? I'd made this video and he was asking. So in the video itself, I said at the end of the video that I'll have to figure out how to add SVG icons. I tried to experiment a bit, but ChatGPT gave me the answer that extend script doesn't really support SVG inheritedly or whatever. So just use PNG icons. It's a lot easier that way. If you want to use SVG icons in your scripts, your go-to method is to make an extension, which I have documented a little bit of it on the channel if you go to the video section, but I also plan to make like full-fledged comprehensive extension tutorials playlist to just consolidate all of what I've learned and also revise, because I've already forgotten all of that I've learned. That will be coming out in Vidhara sometime this year, I don't know when, so tune in for that. I think that is pretty much it that I wanted to document today. We've hit 22 minutes and that's a good spot to end. Thanks so much for being in the code. I will catch you in the next session. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.